ask you a question, and that is, what is in your life's blueprint?
This is Jeremy Till, the host of the Operator Podcast. We'll be taking you on a journey with us, interviewing some of the top performers in their field on how they operate and get the job done. At the end of the day, we want to be our best. We're going to help provide the information, the data, and the science of how to achieve that, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Let's go! Let's go! Our next guest is Aleks Rybchinskiy. He's CHEK certified holistic lifestyle coach and a Level III CHEK practitioner. Aleks has been able to work on me, and I've gotten phenomenal results from him. He works also at the Onnit Academy with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu crew, and he works with individuals all across the city of Austin. He's been a speaker on the Paleo Effects panel for the last 3 years and has a lot of knowledge in the space of body work. We're happy to have him on and let him inside of his knowledge and skill sets. So here's our guest, Aleks. Guys, we got Aleks Rybchinskiy. He showed me a few hand signals to get his name right for our audience that's not watching. But, you know, it's a really cool journey of getting to meet Aleks and the process of kind of learning about him. And I would still say, you know, I've started to build a relationship to him, but still there's a lot of him that I don't know. And it's pretty cool. We have similarities in the sense that we both have children within about a month time frame one another. So that's pretty neat. And but really the way I learned about Aleks was through one of our trainers here, Teo, who had gotten some body work and got introduced to him through some online comments. I think some people were trolling some things on Facebook, and Aleks like slapped him straight with some truth bombs on working with prenatal, postnatal women. And that kind of opened the door, I think, for those guys to get in and start asking questions of Aleks. And so, you know, it was this constant flow of positive things happening with him, with body work that got me on his table, got some great results with him. And so now we have him here. It's pretty exciting. I know that in a couple weeks you'll be presenting at Paleo FX. This will be your third year presenting with those guys. And so just got a lot of knowledge and wisdom in the short time frame he's been here on the planet, and is doing great quality things here in Austin. So just jumping in, Aleks, you got moved here, in the last couple of years, is that right?
Yeah, September 2014, I think, or 15, I don't remember. I think 15.
Yeah, it gets blurry when those kids drop in, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, so I think it's been 2015 is when I came over here.
Yeah. So kind of getting into your story, I know you're a body worker, but I know you're well steeped in the Paul Chek, courses. I don't know the exact terminology that they use, but kind of tell us your credential, if you will, background, and kind of what you carry within, the space of body work and training.
So in training, I started off as actually a trainer, but so before I get into a tangent, so I'm a certified trainer, licensed massage therapist. I'm a certified neurosomatic therapist. I'm a CHEK holistic lifestyle coach level 3. I'm a CHEK practitioner level 4. I have my USA level 1 certification, so I kind of have a plethora of. I even got. I took I don't know if you know who Andrea Ospina is. I took one of his functional range courses, which is another manual therapy course. So there's kind of like a wide variety of stuff, I guess.
And what is and I know you do body work here a couple days a week, and you have your own place out off of 71 here in Austin, Texas. So your primary work right now, I know that we work with, is your body work. Is that kind of where you stay in? That's like your circle of influence?
I noticed that's where, people need a lot of help in, because, I feel like there's, everyone's a trainer, everyone's some kind of coach, and everyone works with people, but kind of the reason why I got into body work is because I used to get body work a long time ago, really painful body work that really fixed me up, and so I've noticed that there's just a missing gap of a holistic way to look at the body from head to toe, and so that's what I notice people need the most. But I do have clients. I train and I coach through their own things, and But I find myself mostly doing body work now because so many people just really need to be structurally realigned instead of just, something released.
Mm-hmm. And so whenever, that word holistic is thrown out there in different ranges, what does holistic mean to you?
Holistic to me means all-encompassing, so mind, body, spirit, emotions. So you're looking at not just what a person comes into you with, what's behind the veil. What do they act like when you're not around? How do they react to things? How does their body move? When they eat something, how does their body react? So you're looking at everything, and then you layer almost like. If you take a bunch of pieces of paper and you layer them on top of each other and you see where the patterns correlate, that's what, to me, holistic really means. Not so much, take an herb because, a naturopath gave it to me or things like that. It's looking at everything that you could possibly look at in someone and then figure out where they need help the most, and then you address the root cause of that issue. So that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's solid, man. Well, so... with your journey in the health and wellness space, you said you got started as a trainer. You were starting to talk about that. Share with us kind of like your journey over the last, that was what, 9 years ago, 10 years ago?
Almost 10 years ago, yeah.
And so what has that process been like for you?
Since I became a trainer, or like on my journey to become...
Yeah, just your, the process of the health and wellness space and kind of how you've gotten to where you are today. So
since moving from Ukraine, I think we had in Ukraine where we lived, we had like our own little like farmhouse where we grew our own food. And so when we moved here, we had there's a language barrier, and so parents are like, meat is meat, food is food, chips are chips, right? And so you kind of like become trusting as to what the food is here. And so I got really out of shape, and then you'd get picked on, and then you go into high school, and then you join the football team, and then you lean out, and then people treat you different, and then so all these things are just kind of like rattling around in my brain. And so then in high school I'm noticing I started moving, and my body started to change. And then after high school, I started becoming more into bodybuilding and like trying to, increase, my body mass and try to make it big in football, so then I started lifting heavy weights because I remember, hey, my body changed really dramatically when I started lifting weights. And then I got, got a little chubby, and then I was thinking, okay, what else do I do? So then I was talking to some people, and they got me on the diet, on a right diet. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, my body leaned out. I've never had abs before in my life. And I'm thinking, okay, well, now it's exercise and nutrition that plays a role. I'm like, that's interesting. I thought it was only exercise. So it's like layering, building. And so I tried going to college, and I couldn't wrap my mind around, the tedious tasks kind of they make you do. So I kind of went into the personal training school route. And that was like the most sense anything's ever made for me. This is applicable. This is comes so naturally to me. I get to help people, and it was kind of like, funny thing is my name means helper of mankind. So it's kind of like an interesting correlation as to where I am now. But that's kind of where, the path has gone, is like little by little, layer by layer. Like, okay, you understand training. Okay, there's something else has to happen in food. Oh, and there's something else that has to happen. And then randomly I met this guy started working at the gym I used to work at, Lifetime in Chicago, and he was working there for like a 3-month span, and I saw him doing some things that to me I was taught was incorrect, and so I asked him, like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing like an extension exercise with rotation? Isn't that bad for your spine? He's like, but why? My spine goes into extension and rotation. Shouldn't you be strong there? And I had no answer. So then I started kind of like asking more questions and diving in deeper. And then he kind of gave me this route. He's like, Paul Chek kind of talks about this. And he goes, but Charles Poliquin talks about this too. But Paul Chek goes into the more holistic, take care of your mind, body, spirit, and Poliquin teaches you how to more, train athletes. And I'm like, okay, well, I know that something in me was like, you need to know what everything is encompassing because you like the whole story. I like the whole story. So I kind of went into that Paul Chek route and just invested a bunch of money, and blindly, I didn't even read about him. I just paid for a bunch of courses. And so the first thing I showed up in was this first thing I showed up was a correspondence courses. It blew my mind about like core stability and training. It was like all the questions that I had were starting to get answered, which previously weren't. They were just like a concrete answer. Here's what it is. Oh, I don't know the answer to that, so that doesn't apply. But Paul has a good job of like explaining things in really like high detail. Mm-hmm. And so when I first showed up to one of his courses, he was like, hey, if you ever want to learn body work, you go to the Neurosomatic Educators. So I'm thinking, that feels really right. So I once again dumped a bunch of money, showed up, and I'm like, these guys make sense. These guys make a lot of sense with how the body is looked at, how the structure sits, what bones move, what nerves go where, and how muscles can impinge different nerves and affect different movements. And so when you just layer the understanding of how I just started layering how the body work, you can reset the body and then use the movement and the exercise to kind of overlap everything. And that's kind of how little by little I started just kind of doing that over a course of time. And I've just been doing this, for almost, been a neurosomatic therapist for like almost 6 years, I think. And then, a trainer for almost 10. So just little by little, just constantly building and building, finding correlations. And, I noticed that this trigger point release goes here, but I was never taught that. Why did it do that? Just kind of notate that. And then next time someone comes in, it was like, maybe I should try that spot again, see if it helps. Oh, it did. Weird. How come no one's talking about this? And so little by little, I just start piecing these things together. And
so the
neurosomatic.
Somatic.
Yeah.
So kind of define what that looks like and what that is.
So so they do a really good job of when the person comes in, you look at what their skeletal structure is doing, and you measure from their heels to and you measure symmetry from one side to the other. So versus Paul does a lot of he checks exact angles. Okay, your knee bends to 125 degrees. Oh, your left one bends 124 degrees, or let's say 115 degrees to make an example. Oh, there's going to be a symmetrical imbalance. Versus neurosomatic educators, they do like, oh, well, we noticed this one's higher than the other. So that there's going to be some kind of pelvic imbalance or some kind of imbalance that's causing the body to shift, to throw this structure out of alignment. And so they do that from the toes and the heels all the way to the top of the skull. So we're paying attention to what the ears are doing, what the temporal bones are doing, what the frontal bone is doing, what the jaw is doing. Most people get like, TMJ surgery when really their jaw just needs to be misaligned because the mandible isn't sitting in the temporal, in the spot in the temporal bone where it needs to go, and it's just not transitioning properly. And so I really like the fact that they address a lot of the bones, like just almost like a chiropractor where they look at the bones, but they look at it from a muscular standpoint where the muscles move the bones. So you can move them, release the muscles to allow the bones to shift back, and then manually kind of manipulate, not so much adjust, but manipulate them back into where they need to go. And then they layer on top of that what the organ systems are doing. So then you look at, okay, well, is this being caused by a visceral somatic or like a muscular to organ reflex, or is this being caused by a muscle being stuck out of balance? So then you look at the chart and you go, okay, from standing to laying down to sitting, here's what's happening. This is happening on the standing, but not on the laying. So it must be an organ dysfunction. So you go look at the organ corresponding to the chart, and then you go, okay, it's all out of balance. But the neurosomatic educators don't go into the diet and components. So then you use Paul Chek's holistic lifestyle coaching, and you go, okay, this person's organs are out of balance. What is causing them to be out of balance? I think I'm going off on a tangent of.
No, it's good.
I can keep going down this road because
Yes.
I think I'm going away from the neurosomatic educators over here.
No, it's good.
So, and then you kind of layer and you go, okay, well, this person has a colon that's inflamed, and it's weird, they have back pain, and I've tried to release their glutes and they still have back pain, and then so you go, okay, well, maybe this person just needs to start eating better, and you ask them about their diet, and then oh my God, their diet's really off. And you go, okay, well, you have a lot of inflammatory markers that are popping up. We need to change the way you're eating. It's not becomes about like the look anymore. It becomes, hey, your organs are causing this dysfunction and it's causing your back to hurt. So we need to fix, your diet, and you kind of lead them on this road, your diet, so you can get your back to hurt, so you can keep training, so you can move your body properly, so that you don't have to come back and see me all the time. And the kind of, and to kind of pull back. So the neurosomatic educators just do strictly the body work and the tissue work on the organs. Then we go inside the eyes and we work on the eye muscles. We go inside the mouth and in the throat.
So a question for you is like, if an individual is alive, at 20, 30, 40,
Mm-hmm.
50, there's going to be imbalances that are going to form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a given that they're going to be thrown off a little bit, As is, I know from your practice, you measure and you find the hip tilt and those things, and the head positioning is like, 9 out of 9 people are going to have dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you find?
Absolutely. And what I usually tell people is, because everyone has that question, it's like, what happens? I'm going to leave here, my head's going to be out of alignment again. I always ask people, how long does it take them to get like some kind of like severe disease? And they're like, how long have you been smoking? They're like, people are like, oh, this person's been smoking for 50, 60 years, and then what happened? And then you got sick, So it's like, what Paul talks about is symptoms come before disease. So if you're starting to feel symptoms, you're probably about to get sick or hurt or something like that. So if you feel like, ooh, a hamstring's starting to twitch, you've gone past that, like, I have beat this muscle up enough, then now I'm starting to get symptoms, then now I'm starting to get hurt. So what I tell people is, first we got to get you healed up again. And once we get you in position long enough that your body can heal itself from whatever it needs to be healed from, whether it needs to, retension itself, because if you're, shifted to the right, all the right side's going to be tight, left side's going to be long. So once you put your head back in alignment, for simplicity's sake, right, and your body readjusts, it's going to take you longer to fall out of alignment. So that person's like, that's 40, that's been dealing with this weird elbow thing for 3 years. You kind of, release some muscles, restructure their body. Oop, elbow pain went away. It's going to take them longer, even if they do the same thing, to develop that elbow pain, if we address it properly from the very beginning. So that's kind of like, everyone comes in with some kind of messed up thing. People leave and they'll still be, out of alignment to some extent. They're going to go skiing and fall and,
So when we look at the physical being, we think about soft tissue, we got joints and ligaments, and we got the bones, and we have the fascia and the skin attachments. So as being in the health and wellness space and the fitness space and working with a lot of different body workers, and then the organs is a whole nother layer of this, that might be the starting layer as we move out the system. When you think of a physical person, because for instance, I was talking to a young lady this past weekend, and she's very new to fitness, and I wouldn't say new to fitness, but just maybe a little bit more of high intensity training, and her traps were sore, and she didn't know if she was injured or not. She went to a chiropractor, and I was like, well, it's your soft tissue that is probably bound up and tight due to the fact that you haven't done work. Probably need to scale down your load, your work capacity and load, and then build that up over time. But in her immediate situation that she's in, not knowing soft tissue from the joints and the ligaments and the fascia, and with someone, when you deal with someone like that, or you think about someone like that that's out there, what would be your approach to speaking into them, right then, and say, hey, let's get you, like, they don't have access to you. Mm-hmm. What would you tell them to do, or how would you explain to them what to do from that standpoint?
So first, I'd have to ask them. I'd have to ask them a couple. If I don't know them, and I've never, like, are we talking about? Am I talking to them, let's say, online, or am I talking just to a general public? If I was talking to like a general public and I had like a room full of 100 people, I'd first ask them. We have to distinguish whether it's fascially tight, whether it's muscularly tight. Is there nerve tension? And is your body out of alignment? So then you'd have a lot of self-awareness questions, like, for example, the lady that had the tight traps. I'd ask, okay, well, stand in the mirror if you don't have access to anyone. Stand in the mirror. Okay, look over through the side of yourself, or take a picture of your side. Is your head really far in front of your shoulders? If it is, you have to understand that that's going to enhance, lengthen the tension between where the trap connects into your skull. And people don't realize that muscles yank off things, and the traps connect right into the base of your skull. And so if those traps are overfiring, they're cranking on your skull, and they're just basically your traps are doing pull-ups off your skull, and your skull has to use your neck to try to maintain that balance. So that's one thing. I go, what does your body look like just posturally standing there? Because that's a big indicator. Because if your head is way far forward, you know that, okay, maybe that person just needs to bring their head back, maybe stretch the front of their neck, because that's what's causing the driving factor for, these tight traps. But they're not even tight, they're actually pulled taut. So we need to release the tension on the front to shorten the traps, to allow them to function properly. So that'd be the first thing. What is your posture looking like if we're just talking about traps? The next thing is I'd ask, okay, well, when you turn your head to the side, do you, let's say I teach them how to do a trap stretch. And when you turn your head to the side, do you feel it's stretching, or is it not letting go? Or do you feel like it's restricting even further? So then I'd start thinking, okay, well, if it's restricting further, I'm going to start thinking it's fascial work. So then you need to get on a foam roller, get some kind of myofascial work done, squeeze it yourself, kind of get some blood into the tissue, and heat enough so that it starts to move the fascia. Because stretching is almost mindless, where you just apply tension, and then the tissue should release if it really needs to stretch. So that's kind of like my last step. And then if it's nerve tension, I always ask, if you take your hand and and you put it in a certain position and you turn your head, and if the moment you turn your head, if you feel shooting pain going down your arm, it's nerve tension. So that that even if they're not in that uncomfortable position, they're going to have that nerve tension, that there's a compressed nerve somewhere. So if you know which of those factors are causing the dysfunction, okay, well, if it's fascia, well, we got to release the fascia, because the more you stretch fascia, the tighter it gets. So basically, you're just tourniqueting yourself, and so it's never going to let go unless you release the fascia properly. So yeah, finding out which problem is actually occurring in your body before you just go and do something.
So if someone's having this and they're like, oh, well, I just went to chiropractor. It's like, okay, well, they're going to realign the bones. Mm-hmm. But if they have soft tissue or fascia tension or whatever, how you describe that, would a chiropractor, from my understanding, wouldn't the muscle and the fascia pull it right back to where it was? How does this practice of chiropractor, or how do you say that? Chiropractic.
Yeah.
Chiropractic.
Yeah.
Edit that out, Brandon. Apply, and how does that? I think chiropractors are useful and they're good at a certain placement in the process. Mm-hmm. And so, when would you say that would be applicable?
So chiropractic works on let me pull back a little bit. There's how people find all these studies about things are good, things are bad, and then people function under laws like laws of gravity and law of thermodynamics, and then you have Hilton's law, which is basically it says, I'm going to paraphrase this because I'm going to butcher if I try to pronounce it properly. That states that anytime you disrupt a signal in a certain joint, any nerve that crosses that joint, any muscle that crosses that joint, any tissue, that even the skin that crosses that joint segment that got disrupted for a second is going to relax. So if you ever have a problem in like your L4, L5, that you can go to a chiropractor, they can crack L4 and L5 in that junction, and that based on Hilton's law, that segment alone is going to relax. But for example, if someone has like shoulder pain, you can't like crack someone's AC joint. So there has to be some kind of structural work and some kind of tissue work to resolve the neurological tension that's being built up, that's causing that muscle to lock up. So chiropractic, I think, in my opinion, and I'm talking about purely chiropractic manual therapy, not their manual adjustments, not so much the additional like cold lasers and muscle stim, is amazing for like back care, because some people will have just tons of back pain, and they will also have associated psoas issues and hip flexor issues and tight back muscles, but you can go to chiropractor, get it realigned real quick, and then get the soft tissue work because the inflammation is down, to allow the pain to go down enough that you can get in and clear up the problem.
So you would kind of recommend the chiropractor work before the soft tissue work?
Sometimes.
Just to alleviate pain.
If they have pain, correct.
Yeah.
It just, once again, it depends on the individual, because a lot of people will have like a pelvic misalignment, and some chiropractors, will adjust the pelvis, some won't. But then also what the neurosomatic educators do is they look at the cranium, and there's something called the Levitt reactor, which basically the simple version of the Levitt reactor is it shows you that C1 and L5 correlate and they move into the same direction, and C2 and L4 move in the same direction, and C3 and L3 move in the same direction, and C4 and L2 and all the corresponding vertebrae move in opposite directions. So if C4 goes left, L2 will go right. That being said, the pelvis also correlates to the skull. So if your iliums, your hip bones, correlate with your temporal bones, and so your occiput, the back of your skull, correlates with your sacrum, and then your coccyx correlates with your sphenoid in your skull. So if you don't really realign someone's cranium properly, their hips are always going to fall out of alignment eventually. And the premise behind chiropractic is, as long as they stay aligned long enough, based on Hilton's law, their body will eventually, they should realign, assuming that they don't do anything to push themselves too far out of alignment, right? Which is the 3 times a week, 2 times a week type of approach.
Mm-hmm. So kind of asking a question for our general audience about pain. And so what I've recognized over the years in the space is a lot of times pain shows up in other points in the body that aren't directly correlated to the problem. And so if my shoulder or my rear delt is hurting, shoulder's hurting, might have a pec issue. And so versus a lot of times we think like, well, I have shin splints, my shins are wrong, And so can you kind of speak to the how the body kind of works from that standpoint of that diametrical, opposite opposing strain pulling could cause pain within other areas of the body?
Mm-hmm. So easy for anyone listening, I mean, you can easily do like a quick test and show you how strong of the body will adjust itself and recompensate itself. Like if you stand up and you put your feet together and you just lean your head forward, and if you do it just a little bit past a normal limit, you'll notice your toes will grip into the ground. You notice your calves will get tight. You notice your glutes will start to tighten up, and that's just to hold you there. And most people have forward head posture, and significant forward head posture. And so I think for every inch your head goes forward, you carry an extra 10% of your body weight on your neck extensors on the back of your neck. So your body has to work really hard to pull you back out of alignment, and to pull you back into alignment, or at least hold you from falling further out. But the body functions from the Vitruvian mat, the anatomical position, and it does that for a reason, is because out of your skull and your brainstem you have the nerves that come out of your body, and they come through your spine, out into your limbs, into the corresponding muscles that in the organs that they need to go to operate. And so when you start messing with the orientation of how the body works, because if you side bend to the left, your left side of your spine is going to compress and the right side of your spine is going to decompress at that segment that you're side bending. So that you've just altered the way that your body receives signal one side to the other. So it's almost like if you are standing in a room talking to a group of people, but then you just shift over and you just start talking to one side of the room and the other side can't hear you, there's going to be a compensation. The guys on the other side of the room that you're not talking to aren't going to hear you. So that's just one aspect of what happens, is you start realigning and the nerves and the tissue, so that the veins and the arteries aren't getting the blood supply. They're not getting the blood return. And going back to that test that you can do, the calf test, the lean forward test with your head. You have veins that come through your soleus, which is the muscle under one of the closest to your shin, the calf muscle, and it's called your second heart. So it's responsible for pumping blood back up to your body. But if it's always tight because your head is so forward,
the soleus,
yeah,
is referred to as your second heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nice.
because when it squeezes, when you walk, and when it pumps blood up through the body,
Interesting.
and recirculates that venous return of blood. And so when you alter that tension, now let's just talk about the calves since we're talking about them. Since the calves get really, really, really tight because they're trying to hold you in place from going even further forward, and since we're talking about shin splints, those calves get even tighter, which pulls the Achilles, which alters the way your foot is shaped, and all of a sudden your calves are so tight that your shins, or the anterior tibialis, where the muscle that people get the shin splints, it can't withstand the pressure that the calves are pulling just to keep you upright. And so people just develop shin splints because their calves are extremely tight. But where does that come from? It can come from their head being pulled forward. So people release their calves, but really their atlas could be out of alignment, which is your C1, which is the the top vertebrae in your skull or your neck. It could be a huge driving force. It could be you sitting at the computer and your neck gets tight. But when you stand up and you can't bring your head back anymore, so you just kind of altered your position, well, now your head is naturally forward. So now once again, this back down the chain, your calves get tight, and now, hey, I want to go for a run because, all my friends are going running, and, oh my God, but I started running for a week, and now my shins are killing me because there's this massive imbalance between, your calves and your anterior tibialis and your shins. So that's kind of like, well, releasing the calves won't necessarily do it. It will help. But if you never put the head back into alignment, you never release the calves, you can rub your shins all day and it won't necessarily make the shin splints go away. It'll make them feel better for temporarily, but they'll most likely keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So
with with the new posture related to cell phones and smartphones and computers, how do you see that impacting the body systems? When they come in, people that come in to see you, or when you see people in general public, because I think about that forward neck, I think about, a forward down looking posture, looking at your iPhone. If you look at technology, you can go into any place in Austin, Texas, and you're going to see half the audience, if not more, looking at their, phones. So how do you feel like that is on a larger scale impacting society and body pain?
So I had to take a breath for that. So not only does forward the text, the phones impact the way you look down, but one hand is always in front of the other. So now it's going to create rotation. So now people that have all this rotation in their body, they're like, weird, one side hurts more than the other, but yet their hand is always, one hand is always on a wheel, or one hand is always in front of them because they're texting, or it's always on a mouse, or they're doing always one thing with the one hand. So they're causing rotation in their body. But every time you look down, you're also letting your ribs compress. So if your ribs compress, your diaphragm can't, for everyone listening, just try to just kind of slump a little bit and then try to take a deep breath with your belly. You can't. And so what that does is people that breathe with their upper respiratory muscles, which is your neck, your pecs, your pec minors, which your scalenes, which are your neck muscles, and your pec muscles, basically they're tiny muscles in relationship to your diaphragm, which is designed to literally vacuum air in at a grand scale and with a lot of efficiency. And that's being impinged by allowing that back to slump for a prolonged period of time, which doesn't allow the diaphragm to open, which also doesn't allow the pressure that you're breathing in to start pumping your organs. So now your organs are just stagnant and just sitting there. So every time you take a breath, your organs get pumped with oxygen, and that's how they also get a sense of blood flow. That's why when we do work, we touch the organs. We get them to move properly.
It just raises an interesting question because, with a lot of reports coming out today about depression association with social media, it could be potentially that social media isn't causing depression, which it could have its impacts, but it could correlate all the way back to posture and position. And so it's like this causation of depression from social media could be more of the device that is being used for social media that's causing the physical positioning, that's causing the diaphragm to shrink down and the higher breath process to occur. So it could be really maybe it's not so much social media, but it's positioning with the device that leads to social media. Could you see that would definitely be playing a part.
And that's what holistic means to me. Is someone comes in with anxiety, and I trace it all the way back to that, and like, oh, their device is causing this, which causes this, which causes this, which causes this, and that's what I was also kind of getting to. That upper respiratory muscles also have, I've been known to cause people that breathe upper respiratory have an increased chance of getting anxiety and depression. So absolutely, and it's not one thing that causes,
Right.
It's just a layering, and so you sit with your phone. Now you're reading negative things, and you can't take a deep breath because you can't process the information that's coming in because you're breathing with your upper respiratory system, which engages your sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, versus your belly allows you to stay parasympathetic, which helps you, poop and digest and relax and go to sleep. And so you stay in this fight or flight state long enough, and then you go to work and you're stressed out. You look on your phone and, oh my God, there's a war about to happen. And then you're freaked out about that too. But now you can't process your emotions because you can't even breathe properly. And most clients that come in, they can't take a full breath. They can't take a belly breath. And so that's like a major problem is, most people are working on, how's my movement look? How's my squat look? And it's like, well, what's your diet look? Because you eat way more than you exercise. And it's like, well, do you drink water? Because you drink water way more than you eat. It's like, do you breathe? How is your breathing like? Because you breathe way more than you drink water, eat, and exercise. But like, why start, at the bottom of the totem pole when really it's like you were saying, it's this collapsing of the chest based on the postural distortion is causing a lot of these prolonged
It's funny
issues.
The idea that keeps popping in my head is everything's not what it seems to be. It's not what it looks to be. It's kind of like this multi-layering of how we're getting to the answer, and it's like you got to really pull back those layers of the onion to get to that, because it's like, well, we have obesity. Well, you need to start working out, and you need to start eating better, and it's like, what is the proper steps to getting you to where you need to be? And it's kind of like, Tony Robbins is really big on, physiology. And I think that the power of moving and exercising is going to increase your hormonal response. It's going to get your posture different. It's going to get your breathing. So it's a great place to start. There's so much more that kind of opens up in layers behind that, which is powerful. And it's very, of interest of mine of late. And so, man, it's the conversation go in a lot of different directions, but I just really been getting into breath and posture and hormonal response, and it really kind of leads me to your expertise because I haven't really got into this a lot. I'm starting to do a lot of study with heart math and with the heart from an intuitive data point, and then you have the physical organ, but then we start to talk about the other organs, and thinking about the health of those organs and then how you work with those organs. And this could be a little bit, for our audience that's not in Austin, this is kind of like something that we're talking about, but, rural America, middle America, getting your organs worked on might not be, a primary first care thought that people would take. So when we start to dive into the management of the organs, kind of what's a framework of mindset to start to even open up that cabinet, that door?
Can you rephrase that question a little bit?
Like you talk about the liver, you talk about, you're talking about how that could be hard and how you would release it and what could come from that, or, just how would you start to address that kind of conversation?
So, anywhere in the world, you can work with like a CHEK practitioner, and they'll give you something called a health appraisal questionnaire, and it'll map out which organs are out of alignment, and that's a good place to start. You can go get a blood test, and it'll show you, oh, your liver is high, or your kidneys are not functioning well, and you can kind of go, okay, well, this is a good place to start, and not a lot of people, will put the two and two together, how the organs will relate to the muscles, and they'll signal to the muscles way more than the muscles signal to the organs. And so, your liver will shut your shoulder down, your right one. So like most people with right shoulder pain usually have some kind of toxic liver. And so, I don't want to get too off topic here, but there's if you're self-treating, or if you're trying to help yourself with organ care, I would definitely start by getting a blood test. That's a good place to start. And then that's very, it could be very vague. Like, okay, well, all these things are out of alignment. You're looking at this thing and you're like, I don't know what any of these things are.
Yeah, you need someone to read it.
And then your doctor will say, oh, that's your liver, that's your kidneys. And you go, okay, great. Who can help me with this? Or what things are causing these things to be out of alignment? And it's like, it's stuff that like may not feel good to you because they're like your addictions, Oh, my colon, I have leaky gut. What causes leaky gut? Processed food, if you're gluten intolerant, too much dairy, like processed dairy, too much processed food, artificial sweeteners, and you go, okay, well, I eat that every day. Now you got to make a choice. Do I stop eating that, or do I just kind of, move on? And if you're like, hey, look, I really want to feel better, and I'm willing to try whatever as long as I feel better at the end of the day, that's a good place to start. And your body will start healing itself, and you'll start becoming more regular to the bathroom, and you'll start feeling, your head will start feeling clearer. And then it's just this constant like evolving, I don't want to call it a battle, but more of a journey, that you have to participate in self-awareness, because most people are just like, what do I do? Just tell me. It's like, well, what does your body feel like? And then most people haven't even asked themselves that question. Where does it hurt in your body? Well, it kind of hurts, and they'll point, right? I guess, right? No. And they'll point to like 3 different spots. And well, I guess I never really thought about it. Kind of hurts in all these spots. So a good place, yeah. So I'm kind of piggybacking and going, okay, good place to start. Getting, finding a CHEK practitioner, getting a quick health appraisal questionnaire. It'll tell you here's the organs are really taking on a lot of stress. Then you can go anywhere. You can go to the internet and find, okay, what herbs are good for this organ to be better? What diets are good for these organs? Okay, I'm noticing this person has high fungus or candida. Anti-candida diet. What does that look like? And what organs are overlapped? And then so you can kind of like piece by piece start healing yourself a little bit by a little bit. But it takes a while. It took you 30 years to develop leaky gut. It's going to take 2 to 3 years of consistent work for your body to kind of heal through it without any help. Like if you just did it all by yourself and you were super diligent and you never got body work and you never got realigned properly, it's going to take a little bit of time. So, but yeah, you correlate movement and you overlap diet and you overlap a good nutritional supplement and you overlap a good mindset, because without getting too far into it, each organ has a different emotion that it gets stored. Based on Chinese medicine, they'll talk about that. And so it's just this overlapping constant work process if you're doing this purely yourself. Mm-hmm. Is that...
Yeah, that's great. And so I think that's kind of is an interesting topic that I do want to get onto, is the emotional storage in the organs. Mm-hmm. And I know it's something that you have the ability to release and really have major transformation for people. So kind of can you kind of walk us into that arena?
So an easy one that most people will experience is they'll have some kind of right shoulder pain. And the liver is associated with anger, and so when someone comes in with high liver enzymes, and they'll come in with right shoulder mobility, and they'll come in with some kind of you wouldn't ask them if they had anger problems directly, because they'll probably say no, and so you kind of like guide the question properly, and so there's you ask, are you angry about anything? Or, is what things upset you? And this is in the consult, or even when you're working on someone, and then you kind of they come in with, oh, my right shoulder hurts, and then you start going a little deeper, and because no one comes in and says, I have anger issues because of my shoulder problem, and my shoulder now is immobile because of it. So you kind of got to pull it out of people, and so.
So with this, what if anyone were wanting to go do research on emotional connection to organs connected to muscle pain, mm-hmm. like what would be your first resource to even look at for that?
I would just Google emotions stored in muscles, and an easy way to look at this is whichever organ is closest to that limb that's where it'll be. So if your kidneys are going to be by your hips, and then your stomach is going to be by your left shoulder, and then your liver is going to be by your right shoulder, and then your lungs and your rib cage are right by your rib cage, so they're going to affect both. And then so that's the easiest way to look at it. And you can also look up an easy way is metaphysical reasons for knee pain, and it'll show you, oh, you're not respecting this person. And then you can assess yourself whether this applies to me or not. Because that gets into the whole realm of no one really talks about this stuff. But I've had plenty of clients that come in and, they'll have knee pain. And I go, when did this knee pain started? 2 years ago. And then we'll kind of talk and, right knee pain, okay.
So I'm really interested, that these questions, go ahead. I've just cut you off.
Oh, no,
Finish your
yeah.
thought.
So I'm kind of, I'm thinking, and I'm like, okay, they have right knee pain, and, is your dad around? Yeah. Do you guys have a good relationship? I don't really talk to him anymore. How long ago did this happen? 3 years ago. Oh, and then your knee pain started to hurt. And then it started to get worse since then. And you've tried everything. So it's like, and so like, I'll go, okay, well, you know what? I'll work with them, because sometimes people don't, if I have a feeling that they don't want to, like bring that stuff up. So I'll kind of do whatever I can, work on their quads, work on their hip alignment, work on, the tissue, get their exercise. And then it still is like nagging them. I'll bring it up and go, what's really going on? And I'll give them some exercises and like, just do this, because I've done everything possible. So do this, and then do this kind of exercise. Think of, talking to your dad again, and see what happens. If your knee pain starts getting better, it's something you might have to do. Would you be willing to do that? That kind of like conversation happens, but it's usually never like an upfront type of experience like, oh, it's because of this.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So with upcoming with Paleo FX, I know I was kind of talking to you about that event and presenting. What kind of is your specialty in that space, and how do you present your information for value there? So
the first time I ever got in, I had 2 courses. I taught how the core functions, so like how the inner unit works with the outer unit, and how everything gets tied together by your core, and so like how the core integrates your lat into your spine, and how the core also integrates your psoas into your spine, and how the limbs get attached, and how everything functions together as one. Then the next year I talked about, it kind of got blended together. And so I didn't have 2 courses. I kind of talked about it in one course. And I think I've been talking so much about breath, and so many of my clients have just been not breathing properly. And so I'm going to talk more about how the core functions properly, and but really emphasize the breathing aspect, because the last 2 years I've been talking more about like educating people, and like, oh, here's cut and dry anatomy and how it links together, and I kind of showed everyone the correlations. But I feel like I might turn this year. So the course is named the same. It's like stability, core, balance. It's kind of like a very vague meaning, because it allows me to elaborate on anything I want that relates to those subjects. But I think a lot more emphasis this year has been spent on breath, and so I'm going to be teaching a lot of how breath creates proper core tension, which creates proper movement, which creates safety and stability, which creates you increasing you being better at your sport, or you not getting hurt, all because you're breathing properly. So that's kind of what I think I'm going to speak on mostly this year.
Yeah, that's good. Well, anything else, like in the sense of what you'd like to share about what you do as a professional?
Day to day is just super amazing that like every day is something new. Because no one's like, if you go to the, if you were with numbers, the numbers kind of come in the same. Yeah, they're different, but you kind of just work with numbers, and I get to work with literally human beings that change every single day. And so it never gets boring for me, because everything is just, I have to layer all those concepts together every day. So I'm using my brain constantly every day. And it's, I'm super grateful that my brain works like that. And I can conceptualize all those different things and hold them to a person, which, I mean, people are extremely complex. When you break them down, you can speak on them simply, but when you expand them, like there's a funny analogy. You can take a car bolt by bolt and then apart piece by piece, put it back together, and it's still a car. You can't take a human apart piece by piece, put it back together. It won't be the same human being, the same conscious, thoughts, and they probably won't even be alive, So I get to influence that every single day, and so it's extremely, it's an extreme honor to have people come in and they'll be in pain for 10, 20 years, and I get to help them based on just me conceptualizing things and then applying what I learned to a human being. And I mean, I'm just super grateful for that opportunity to be able to apply my knowledge and hope and share my knowledge with how I applied multiple modalities together, and how which it allows me to see gaps in myths and gimmicks, and because it's like, well, this gimmick doesn't really work because this is going to throw this out of alignment, and so eventually this person's going to have an issue here. So it's like, so how does this help this person now, or even it might help them now, but how does it help them in the long term? Because then they're going to go for another. So it's another gimmick, and so the best part is just seeing the most. I don't want to say weird, but the most interesting situations, and how I trace them through it's fun. I get to map people, and how I get to problem solve this person's deep problem that they've been facing for years and years, or maybe it's that just happened, and I still get to trace it back and go, wow, this is a deeper issue. I mean, you better take care of this now before you become one of my clients that's 50, 60, 70, and then you're dealing with it. So it's neat. I started actually working with a group of football kids, and I saw their form. I'm like, I get to impact them now, and then when they're 20, 30, they're going to have good movement patterns, because they learned at a young age how to squat properly, how to breathe properly. Because most times, you go to a camp and you're like, let's lift. I'm like, let's breathe. Who can breathe? And I'm like, squat, and everyone's squatting, and I go, who pay attention to their breath? No one. Okay. Who's breathing with their chest? Who's breathing with their stomach? I think I was breathing with my stomach. Okay, put your hands here, Who's breathing with their chest? Okay, I think all of them raise their hand, And then, okay, now put your hands on your belly. Okay, make your belly, so I get to impact, such a young generation to learn how to do that stuff.
It's just so interesting how so much stuff is by chance. If someone falls into something, or something works out for someone and doesn't, and all these traits can be learned, and put into place if they have the proper teachers to give them the tools to do it. And if they don't, by chance. I was walking up the street the other day, and this guy that looks like he lives on the streets, his compliment is, "Hey man, you look great. You work out." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, keep it up." And then he's like, "I used to do that when I was younger too." And it's like, now he lives on the street, and it's like, at some point where his path, and who knows what he went through and where he is now and whatnot, but it's like he could still be, forging that path of fitness, and it's like these coincidences or these things, these learning lessons that you don't pick up or you do pick up. But I think it's really good for this younger generation to be able to pick up these, tools that they can implement now that will set a course for the rest of their lives. So that's pretty neat stuff, man. Well, I know that, getting you in here and being able to share your story with us, we really appreciate it. And I know that if people are in the Austin area or traveling here, want to get with you and look into your services, what's their best way to get in contact with you?
They can always go on our website, primalfusionhealth.com, and then just go or email us at clients@primalfusionhealth.com, which you can also find on our website. And just email us, and we respond within a day, sometimes even quicker. And just what questions you got, find us on Facebook, Primal Fusion Health. Instagram, everyone has an Instagram, a Twitter,
Yeah, well, I think that is good, and kind of wrapping up too, because you did say us throughout every single statement that you made, because your wife is a part of the group. So just tell us a little bit about her expertise.
So we actually met in a holistic lifestyle coaching level 3 course with Paul CHEK, which is his last most advanced coaching class. And so we just started our business together, and she does a lot with mental, emotional things with like trauma related. So people that have have been sexually traumatized, emotionally traumatized, abused, OCD. She's great with that type of work. So she does like cognitive behavior training to reverse old negative thought patterns and old habits that are just, causing you to self-sabotage yourself, because we all have, self-saboteurs in us, or else if we applied ourselves 100% of the time, we'd be amazing if we were 100% every time, And so allowing yourself some, allowance to be human, but yet be the best human you can be. And she really helps optimize people in that regard. And she also does training. We both do, but she's, a lot of clients have been coming to her based on, hey, I have these thoughts, these old, scars that are impacting my life today. And I don't know how to fix it. And, been doing therapy for, 5-10 years, and I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So she's been really helping people, and especially in the Austin area, of how to get their life back. So I find them, I send her the once I find what's really going on with the person through manual work or through some kind of assessing, and I go, hey, you really need to see Sarah. She'll open your mind up and teach you how to really take control of your life back. And then along with that, along with your exercises, you'll be able to leaps and bounds, because, people don't realize, maybe they do, but I don't think they think about how much emotions impact their health and their posture. Like, what is a confident posture? Chest up, right? What is a sad posture? Chest down, right? And then all that can flow. And once again, it's this holistic concept of if you're looking down too much, and then you're compressing your diaphragm, your ribs are compressing your diaphragm, and then you just start all of a sudden developing some kind of depression because you're in a slumped posture and you're not a confident posture. And so it's allowing all this awareness to be awakened inside of you till, you are not your past, or you're not your injury, or you're not your trauma. So let's figure out how to move past it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The holistic approach. Awesome, Aleks. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thank you for joining us on the Operator Podcast. Please join us on our virtual platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we will see you soon.